Arav finally got into TCS. I'm really happy today, yaar.
Congrats, bhai. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, don't worry. The next hiring round, I'll inform you first.
Thank you so much, Arav. But I recently got placed at Amazon. You don't need to worry about that.
अमेजोन क्या ही फर्क पड़ता है, टीसीएस जितना ही तो फेमस है, सैलरी में भी क्या ही फर्क होगा। चलो एक बार पूछ ही लेता हूँ। इंटरेस्टिंग। वैसे कितना पैकेज लगा?
बस something around 30 LPA.
सीरियसली मुझे तो यार 3 इंटरव्यू राउंड्स और बहुत सारी ट्रेनिंग के बाद 4 एलपीए तक पूरा नहीं मिल रहा। इतना फर्क क्यों?
They both are just starting their career, but one is getting 30 LPA and the other is getting below 4 LPA. This big difference is not in their skill set or college tag, but in the choice they made. You might also make a choice like this, which leads to a career with really less salary and negligible growth and promotions. Today, first of all, we'll understand why there is this big difference in salaries in some companies. Then I'll give you a roadmap to shift from a low paying to a high paying job. See, there are two types of tech companies. One is services based like TCS, Wipro, Infosys, and the other is product based like Google, Amazon, and Netflix. Now, revenue generated by one employee of TCS in 1 year is around 40 lakhs, but still he hardly gets 3.5 LPA. This is the same scenario in almost every service-based company. If each employee is generating good revenue, then why so low salaries? To understand this difference, we need to dive deep and understand their business model. Imagine a fast-growing food delivery startup in the US wants to build a new app to manage orders, track drivers, and handle payments. Instead of building everything in-house, they reach out to Infosys in India and say, "Can you build and maintain this app for us?" Infosys agrees, provides a team of developers, finish the project, and charges a fixed amount for it. So TCS or Infosys makes money not by building their own product, but by doing work for others. Their focus is on delivering client projects, meeting deadlines, and keeping costs low. This is the reason that these companies are now called factories filled with skilled labor. To make more money, they need more projects, and that means they hire more people. Take TCS for instance. They hired almost 42,000 freshers in 2025, and Infosys hired around 15,000 freshers in 2025 so far. But when projects drop, then begins the real game. In financial year 2023, Infosys hired over 50,000 freshers, but by FY24, that dropped to under 12,000. A huge 76% decline because their project pipeline shrank. This helps us understand why these companies hire and lay off in bulk. But now, our main question. If they are having a good number of projects, even revenue per employee is good, why can't they increase the salaries? The answer lies in the operating profit margin. Let's take the example of Infosys. They have an operating margin of around 23%. Operating margin is the amount that is left after salaries, rent, admin costs, software and hardware tools, etc. Now let's assume they just decide to increase the salaries. Here's where it gets interesting. Infosys has over 3.2 lakh employees, and out of these, a huge chunk, almost 40 to 45%, are freshers or junior employees, mostly hired at a starting salary of around 3.6 to 4.5 LPA. Now, if we double the fresher salaries from 4.5 to 9 LPA, let's assume they have 1.3 lakh employees in this junior band. Now, additional 4.5 lakhs for 1.3 lakh employees would mean nearly 6,000 crore rupees. Infosys made 29,300 crore rupees as operating profit in FY24. But if salaries suddenly go up by 6,000 crore rupees, their operating profit drops to just 23,300 crores, which cuts their margin from 22 to around 17%. Now on paper, even 17% looks good, but in reality, that 5 to 6% margin drop is huge in this industry. Because clients won't suddenly start paying more. The rates are mostly fixed, and for a services company, profit margin is the game. The moment margins shrink, stock prices fall, investor confidence dips, and future hiring slows down. So ironically, if they increase salaries too fast, they risk crashing their own business model. So what product-based companies are doing differently and how can they pay more? Unlike service companies, product-based companies don't build apps or systems for others. They build their own products once and sell them millions of times. Let me explain with an example. Take Adobe. It created Photoshop once. Now every designer, creator or agency that wants to use it pays a monthly subscription fee. Whether 100 people use it or 10 million people use it, Adobe doesn't need to rewrite the software from scratch each time. They just scale it. Or think of ChatGPT. They built the infrastructure once and now thousands of startups, enterprises and individuals use it daily. So while the cost of creating the core product is high at the beginning, the cost of serving the next million users is almost negligible. Now if we compare to service-based companies, then if they get 10 more clients, they need to hire 10 more teams to deliver those projects. Their revenue depends directly on how many employees they have. But for product companies, revenue depends on how well their product sells, not how many employees they add. That's why product companies can afford to pay higher salaries. Their business model is designed to scale without growing headcount at the same pace. Now, if you look at the numbers, then in FY24, Google's parent company Alphabet had a profit of over 25%, and Microsoft's operating margin was over 40%. Fewer employees required and high profit margins. I guess now you won't ask how they can pay more. Here's something more interesting. Product-based companies don't just offer better salaries, they also offer a very different kind of work culture and growth opportunities. And to understand that, we need to understand something called billable hours. Suppose Infosys signs a contract with a US-based client to build an app. In that contract, every developer's time is billed to the client like 3,000 rupees per day for a junior developer, 10,000 rupees for a senior developer, and so on. Now, the moment your project ends or the client pulls out, you become non-billable. That means you're still on the company's payroll but not making them money. And the harsh reality is that if you stay non-billable for long, you may not get projects, raises, or even job security. If you think this is all theory, then let me tell you, TCS recently made a rule that employees must have at least 225 billable days in a year. In contrast, product-based companies don't have this system. You're not judged by how many hours you log, but what value you create. That's why product companies give you another benefit to innovate and grow. For example, if you're part of the team at Google, which is building YouTube, you can experiment, take risks, and try bold ideas. But when you're building for a client, you're often told exactly what to do, how to do it, and your creative freedom is much more limited. Another big difference is the technology stack and learning curve. In service-based firms, you might end up working on legacy tools just because the client asked for it. Imagine working in 2025 on a banking project that still uses code written in a language from the 1960s. But in product-based companies, you'll often work with the latest tools from AI to cloud-native systems to cutting-edge mobile or web frameworks. That's why employees here grow faster, both in knowledge and compensation. Now that we know how product-based companies work and why they can afford to pay more, the obvious question is, how can we actually get into these companies? To answer that, we need to first understand what these companies are really looking for. If we take Google as an example, their job listings clearly mention things like strong foundations in data structures and algorithms, deep understanding of programming languages like Java or Python, the ability to design scalable systems, and ideally a GitHub profile or portfolio that proves you've built or contributed to real products. Similarly, Razorpay, one of India's fastest growing product companies, specifically asks for engineers who understand how to build and ship features, collaborate across teams, and improve product performance, not just write working code. This tells us that these companies don't care how many certificates you've collected. They want creators, problem solvers, and people who try to offer instead of being told what to do. Even if we take a real life example, there was this guy named Abdullah Khan from Mumbai and he got a 1.2 crore package at Google without even applying. He used to regularly participate in online challenges, and one day, Google emailed him by seeing his profile just from that website. So now, let's talk about how you can transition, whether you're still in a college or already working in a service-based company. The first and most important thing you need is a strong grip on data structures and algorithms. This is your ticket to even sit in the interview. Every major product company like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Adobe begins their hiring process with DSA rounds. It's not because DSA is used every day on the job, but because it tells them how you think. Can you break down problems? Can you write clean, optimized code under pressure? To build this, pick one language, Java, Python, or C++, and master it through daily problem solving. Platforms like LeetCode, Code Studio, or Geeks for Geeks are your battleground. Sometimes you will get hired from here to store data efficiently. After building your base, start building real-world projects, because no matter how many problems you solve, companies still want to see what you've actually built. If you're into front-end, create a personal portfolio, a blog, or a weather app using React. If you're into back-end, build REST APIs, authentication systems, or even a clone of a simple e-commerce site. The goal is not to impress someone with design. It's to prove that you can take an idea, write code, deploy it, and keep it running. Push everything to GitHub, write clear documentation, show that you care about quality. Now comes something that most students ignore: system design. Once you grow past entry-level roles, system design becomes the key filter. If you're applying for software development engineer level 2, software development engineer level 3, or even senior front-end back-end roles, you will be asked how you would scale a messaging app, or how you would design an order tracking system like Swiggy's. Don't worry, you don't need a PhD. You just need the basics, like how to handle millions of users, what happens when a server fails, and how to actually solve things. And yes, having a strong GitHub profile is no longer optional, it's your resume in public. It shows what you've learned, how consistent you are, and how well you explain your work. No recruiter wants to read a 3-page CV filled with buzzwords, but they will open your GitHub to see how you code. This journey takes time, typically 3 to 6 months of focused effort for freshers or switchers. You will need daily practice, mock interviews, and coding contests. So yes, product-based companies pay more, but they also ask more. They want creative problem solving, scalable system thinking, and real impact. Honestly, we can't change the business model for any of these companies, and it's not our headache. But one thing that we can change today is our career path. Now we know what the reality of the market is and what is possible and what is not. If we still don't take our chances and hope for a better future, it won't happen. If you find this video helpful, then drop a like and tell us in the comments your experience regarding your company. For more such videos, subscribe to Marwari University.